How you doing, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this one, we're going to be going through all the mid-range guys from hookers and also the middle forward. So just before we start, I just want to jump into that Maori Indigenous game the other night. It was a really, really good spectacle. I absolutely loved the war cries of both teams. I actually hadn't seen the Indigenous one before, so that was really cool. But in terms of their fantasy output in this one, obviously, it was a bit of a strange one in terms of it was raining the whole time. So, stats can change quite dramatically in those types of games, but they, both teams tried super hard, and obviously with a few sim bins in the game, they're really trying. But in terms of points for a lot of guys, very, very easy to see someone get a 60 odd, see someone get a 20, and write them off straight away. And I think that's, very much a bad strategy to have. It's good to look at a few things, and if you see someone absolutely dominated in this game, then okay, they're expected to get big points by it, right? But there's some instances where they could sneakily get that bigger score, and that's something that we see with Cleary a lot. We look down and he's 40 in 40 minutes, and a lot of time he hasn't done too much. So we'll take a look at those types of guys as well. But firstly, with our Maori side, we'll just go through a few guys here, and if we're looking at that top five, I mentioned that it wasn't too many guys to follow along in this game, just because they're either priced right on where they should be averaging, or just weren't going to be a good fantasy pickup. But our first one to mention here is Joseph Tarpanay. So 78 from him. He was someone that actually really stood out in this game. The stats is really bad on this website, guys. So we're just going through the points and talk a little bit about what they look like to the eye. But Tarpanay obviously should have probably got a try as well in there. But played awesome, and this is very normal for someone like Tarpanay. We will speak about him in the mid range through the rest of this video. But for him, he's someone that has had really big stints, 3 to 5 games where he will average just sort of 60, and then he'll go back to like 35 to 40, or he ends up on the bench, or something happens with him. So he's someone that's never really been fantasy relevant, apart from when he first came on the block a bunch of years ago. So that's something to think about with Tarpanay. A lot of people ask me in the comments straight away, how do I get him in? Do I pick him over someone else? Just be aware that he can have these games because he's super talented. Aaron Clark, solid. Again, we'll speak about him in the mid-ranges. Just his scoring in the amount of minutes he had is pretty normal to what he's going to get. So, yeah, just a general idea of him. Someone like Britton Nakora, who we'll speak about in the mid-range for the edges, had a really, really good game, and everything stats-wise was absolutely perfect. Plenty of tackles, not very limited misses, ran the ball really well, and that's something that he can do. But again, he's someone that since his rookie year, where he played on an edge, and everyone had him in their center position, that he hasn't really kicked on and become an ultimate keeper. He's always been in that high mid-range sort of level, and I can see that keeping a similar level for him. Just Savanga is always someone that scores really well, so that's nothing to really think about there, and that's about all from this team. And just on the Indigenous side, I just want to talk about a couple of different guys. So we've obviously got the minutes here. Just remember that not all of them played a full game, but heading to the fantasy scoring. All right, Kennedy didn't score very well. Looks fine. Same with Hamiso. These are guys that they have very different roles when they're going to be playing their own team rather than in these types of games. Just silly to think about them as being completely wiped out of your side just because of one game. Hamiso obviously playing on a wing rather than playing at fullback. Raymond's really, really similar in every game. Gets another 40, so that's that there. The biggest one I want to talk about here is Nicho Hynes. So picking up 69, and if you're watching the game, he didn't do anything spectacular. He just ran the team, ran his meters, got his bus, got his old offload, kicked in general play, a couple of a goal. Just did a few different things there, which is really, really positive signs. If you're looking to pick him up as a keeper in the wing fullback or the halves, a game like this where he picked up 69 and didn't really stand out too much, just got the one try assist, Like he's not there. He wasn't out there scoring tries, setting up everything, making line breaks himself, for example. So this is something that's really important to look out for. Those types of players that can do that, being on the field for 80 minutes and just directing a team around, then that's really, really important. So that's something to note going forward. Cotter was solid. That's kind of what we're going to expect, somewhere between that 40 to 45, 50, if you're lucky. But this is in a hooking position, so it's hard to tell. Fafita probably won't make the 17, so keep that in mind. Ryan James didn't play too big a minutes, but didn't really stand out. So again, keep him in mind, but nothing too much to talk about. David Fafita, what a try that was, the under-12s footy. So he's going to be a top gun again. If you like him, no worries with slotting him in there. Someone like Josh Curran, so he comes in and doesn't score too well, right? I guess it's a 27, but he looked likely. Every time he ran the ball, he was running good lines. he was breaking the line a little bit without getting too many tackle breaks, for example. He was just getting a few post-contact meters. And just looked really, really solid. Like looks like a really top class, first grader now. So I think that 27 is not something to worry about too much, even though it was at bigger minutes. He didn't get a lot of tackles, for example. Ran the 80 meters. So he's someone that I think is going to be fine going forward. He's going to play big minutes for the Warriors. So just got to follow along with how he went with his concussion. So that's that, guys, with that match, and just a general idea of how you should be looking at trials over the next few weeks is going to be very helpful. Okay, let's move to Lockie Croker as our first mid-range guy. So for me at 561k, I'm not seeing too much value. So he played really well learning his position last year. I think he's going to average pretty much what he's priced at. If you look here, he hasn't got a lot of upside in terms of big games. He's got the random game where he scored a try, so 64, 55, 52, up a little bit further, and a 64, which is pretty normal for a hooker. If they can get 40 tackles and score a try, there's that. But what you need out of him is some games where if he does score a try or sets up a couple, that he can pick up 65 to 80. And then those games where he doesn't do as much, there's a few less tackles in it, he can get that sort of 40 average. But he's got a bunch of games there. Obviously not at 80 minutes, which gives him a tiny bit of upside. But with how he went last year and how the team went, I can't see him improving too much on that. He's priced at 45. I can see him averaging anywhere between 40 and 45. So that's that for Lockie. Cotter, we've spoken about a little bit already, but for me, he's a hard worker. Needs 60 minutes, and I'm not sure if he's going to get that. Okay, so we're going to need hear a little bit more from Coach Payton as to if he's going to be getting that 60 minutes. Because if he does, his PPM's high enough that he can get that 50 average. But yeah, we want him to at least be averaging over 45. Being priced at 40 currently, with a 43 average. But if you look at obviously the stats is pretty telling that he has some good work ethic. 60 minutes, 52 tackles, 156 meters last year was pretty cool. 53 minutes for 44 with 33 tackles and 113 meters. 40 and 41 minutes at lock, which includes 3 tackle breaks but 2 missed tackles. So nothing too outstanding, but just the work ethic's really strong, and we'd be happy with that. But you see, like a 38 and 54 minutes doesn't cut the mustard. For example, we need him getting over 60 minutes, where he might be able to get a 45 in that scenario. So just something to think about with Cotter. Obviously, dual position, hooker and mid is solid, but other than that, not a perfect option. But again, if you're not going to go gun in the hooking position, then he might be your guy to plug that role, who has a little bit of upside. Think of it that way. All right, Mitch Kenny, 478k. So with him, he is at the Panthers, obviously sitting behind Apsite Coruscant. What he needs is going to be 80 minutes, and even in that, he made a bit of cash, right? Last year, got up to the 542 mark before he started going back down in his big minute role. So he's really good at making tackles. Obviously, misses a few, making that many, but doesn't run the ball too much, and only had 1 try assist in that time. So he's someone who is going to do okay without absolutely killing it. I think what you want from Mitch Kenny is just keep an eye out on him. If Appy goes down and Kenny ends up somewhere in the low 400s, and I think you can make 100 or so K from him and get some good scores, 40 plus. But at this stage, I'd probably be steering clear. Starling, who's 52k cheaper. I think he needs to start to be valuable, basically. Like he's going to do okay off the bench, which we'll talk about in a second. But if Hodgson goes down, then I'd be looking to pick him up. But other than that, it's a little bit of a worry. Priced at 34. If you look at some of his games, obviously when he plays 70 to 80 minutes, he's got 63, 57, 63, 54, and a random 31 there. He'll miss 7 tackles, but we can cop that sometimes. But if you look lower down the list here of games, his last bunch of games of the season, he came off the interchange bench and scored fairly well in a 55-minute role, right? So he's got a 33, 42, 46, and 48 with a 50 as well, which puts him at an average in the mid 40s, right? Which at a price of 34 gives you 10 points of value. But I suppose the real question is, can he continue that kind of effort? You're looking at the tackle breaks and offload stats. It doesn't really change too much for him. Is he going to be able to increase his attacking output? He's someone that can score a decent try, which we saw in 2020. Got a few there through the middle part of the season. So definitely a little bit upside there. But for me, I still think I'm going to look to pick him up if Hodgson goes down, if that makes sense, with an injury. Aaron Clark, okay, cheap starting hooker. Not a fan of his PPM, and I'll show some examples in a second. And he's probably only going to gain a little bit of value there. Priced at 33. I think Starling in a roll off the bench is probably a better option than Aaron Clark. If you look at obviously his time on the interchange bench isn't too much to think about. We need to look at these starting roles. So we've got his 70 off in 51 minutes was just an amazing game. He played so good, and that was just off the bench, not in a hooking role, playing a little bit of it, but more through the middle. You get him in a hooking role, 64 minutes for 38, 60 minutes for 43. Okay, 57 for 24 points, 40 in his 66, and 55 in his 80 minutes. So if you get 80 minutes, you're going to get plenty of tackles. And you have 53 for 2 misses, which is pretty amazing, right? He also has games at the end of the year for 67 minutes for 31. So a bunch of games that are under his current break even. Which shows that, if you're going to pick up Aaron Clark, he's probably going to end up somewhere between 400 and 500k. You're then going to have to trade him out at some point. Do you even want to start him if he's averaging 35? Like if you've got a Harry Grant or a Damien Cook or something like that, he's going to be sitting on your bench, and you might be a third or fourth reserve, doing okay. A 6% ownership, you're not going to miss out too much if he does go amazingly. But on track record, I can't pick him up. I don't think he's going to do well enough, unfortunately. All right, so that's the hooking mid range. We move on to Jason Taumalolo in our middle forward. So for him there, you just need to. I just like an idea of the minutes and the position. So if he's playing in the front row, I don't think it changes for him. He's not a ball playing guy. Can he get back to anywhere near 2019, also 2020 seasons? What are the minutes going to be like? He obviously played a lot less minutes last year. Very limited games where he was over 60 minutes. He's got 3, 4 in that section there, and then played a game in second row. But if you look in 2020, for example, a lot of games in that mid 60s to 70 minutes was his standard. He'd have a little breather, either early in the second half or at the end of the first half. And that's where you need him to be. That's where he's going to, if he gets that extra 10 minutes, he's going to get that extra 30 to 50 run meters, the odd extra tackle break. He's obviously going to lose a few points in the tackle break category as well, with him not being a massive offloader of the ball, looking at averaging around 1 a game there. So for Lolo, he's 2021 average is 48. He's priced at 50. There's already, one offload being priced back in, for example, at 620k. Is he going to get back to that? I'm not exactly sure. I just feel like there's too many question marks at that 50 price point for him to be a really good option at this stage. So I'm going to leave him out on my side, but let me know what you guys are trying to do with Lolo. I think there's some better options that are a little bit more expensive in TPJ and these types of guys, which we spoke about in all the guns videos. So if you haven't seen any of them, jump back into that. And if you aren't following along with all the videos, please subscribe so you can keep up to all of them. There's a few guys that are popping in and asking certain things, but they've all been said in previous videos. So if you can jump in and do that, that would be really cool. Okay, Mo Fodawaker. For him, super solid scorer for a couple of years now. I don't really see the upside, and I wouldn't say he's exactly a keeper. He's going to be a little bit volatile. You see at the start of the year last year, came in and really killed it, even in not even big minutes, right? Especially the first 4 games, and then it has a couple of good ones here in the mid 50s to 60 minutes, where you get a couple of 50s. He has a random game where he gets a 90 and a 94 and a 70, and then he goes into these 30s and 40s to finish out the year. So really volatile. He's going to have good games at certain points, but somewhere around that 50 average will be him. So not someone I think is a keeper and not really worth bringing to your side, I don't think, especially at this stage. All right, Christian Welch is an interesting one. So for him, we get more offloads and tackle breaks, which is a big positive. There's going to be less forwards in the Storm rotation this year. And he does play Origin, and I'm not thinking he will be and end up being a keeper, for example. So 45 average last year. Not someone that averages big minutes, right? You see a bunch of games pretty much around that, anywhere from 45 to 55 minutes, 50 being around the average. And if we go to that tackle breaks and offloads section there, we've got him as getting sort of 1 to 2 tackle breaks a game, but plenty of games where he gets 3 to 5 offloads. So, and being fairly accurate in his offloading, you should see around a 4 to 6 point net positive on that. And you see he's already got one of those offloads already priced in. So maybe 4 points in value there. The question will be, does he get close to that 55 minutes average, or does he stay at that same minutes average? So if he can get that little bit, 5 to 10 extra minutes, I think he's going to be definitely well worth it. You might get him at a 53 average rather than a 45, which gives him, sort of 50 to 60 points. 50 to 70k in price upgrade from where he is now, but you're probably going to get rid of him come Origin time anyway. So something to think about if you're looking to save trades, then Welch probably isn't your man. You're going to have to trade him out at some point. But he's pretty consistent in terms of not missing too many games and stuff, which is very helpful. All right, Paddy Carrigan. For me, he's a bit of an issue just for the fact that when he first came into the league, in was it 2020 was when he got the big minutes. Yeah, so 2020, looking at his lock roll, and he's playing anywhere from 65 to 80 minutes, and that's where his scores are amazing. He obviously works hard. There's a bunch of games of 50 tackles, 170 meters. He was incredible, right? He moves to the start of this year. In 2021, he did get 80 minutes in that first game, but they had some issues with Matt Lodge getting injured, for example, early in the piece. So then from there, he's down around that 55 to 60 minutes, and he's just not going to get, he didn't have the work ethic that he did, I don't think, in 2020, but he's obviously going to score anywhere near as well. So I expect him to average somewhere between 45 and 50 if he gets about that 60 minutes, but that's not really going to be worth it for someone who's priced at 47 at this stage. So they're kind of pricing that in a little bit off the odd offload that he can provide, but more of the fact of how he went last year, I think. So that's Paddy. At this stage, I would be steering clear. All right, Tino Fa'asalama'awi. There we go, my slow version. At 583k. I really don't think the captaincy changes much, if I'm honest. People are saying, oh, he's more responsibility. He's gonna do really well. He's 21. I can't believe they made him captain over someone like Kevin Proctor, unless he's not going to be playing many minutes, unless there's something going on there. It's a really strange one. But Tino is captain. Yes, more responsibility, but will that inject into his play? I don't really think so. He played really big minutes already and still didn't score very well. Mid 50s, couple of 65s, a 70-minute game there. Plenty going on, and you can 70 minutes a lot, getting 46. So they're not really keeper scores. When he scores tries, he can get it. He had one really big game here in round 4 after a really slow start. I just think he's too volatile. He just doesn't have that fantasy pedigree in terms of, he's someone that could easily miss tackles. He's not someone that's going to get 40 tackles a game and 100, 150 meters to get like 45, 50 base. He relies on a bit of attacking stats, which he got more of at the Storm. I just think the 10% ownership is really wrong. Should be around the 4 to 5, I think, for Tino. So let me know what you guys think in the comments about Tino. We'll move on to Tarpane. He's an interesting one. Obviously, after he did so well the other day, but they're not vaccinated. He's really, really volatile. We spoke about him pretty much, but I'll just show you some of the examples, right? So the first game last year, 74 in 42 minutes. He then has 48 and 41, which is really, really, really solid. But the minutes is an issue, right? So, we know he can rack up tackle breaks and offloads and score tries and whatever else he does. But then he got games off the interchange. There was a lot going on in the Raiders last year. I completely understand that. He gets an opportunity to play prop in the back end of the year and has a bunch of good games, right? 71, 41 in 56 minutes is average, but 59 in a 47-minute stint, 56 in a 51. So things have to go right when you're not playing 60 minutes, right? So you do really well. But finished really, really well. And the question is he going to get that opportunity again? Is he going to be playing mid 50 minutes? If he does, I think he's got some upside for sure. But if you look in previous years, he's had similar things like this. He's played some time on the edge. He's split his time in the middle off the interchange. And had some solid games, but also some high 30s to 40s. So priced at the 579, 46 average, look, there's probably a tiny bit of upside. Like you might be able to get him closer to a 50, but it's going to be a roller coaster. So the 3% ownership, looks like if he doesn't get vaccinated, he's going to miss a bunch of the first games anyway. So I don't think he's someone that you should think about too much at this stage. So that is that. Okay, Junior Paulo is an interesting one to look at. So very similar to Welch in the fact that offloads becomes a net positive. And for me, he's never been a keeper as well is something to consider for Junior. But again, you look at some of these scores. If he scores a try, gets a line break, he's going to do really well. Like the start of last year, a lot of people definitely picked him up after those 2 games, which is fair enough. He did score 2 tries though. It's going to come back to the norm there. 5 offloads in that first game. He then gets 39, 47, 27, 33, 47, 24. If that excites you, by all means, you can pick him up. But to me, that is not exciting at all. And didn't really score over 50 until round 19. 56, 60. So he's going to be volatile. I don't see, yes, he offloads a bit, but it's not. He does tackle bust a bit too. So you might get a little bit of a net positive. Maybe a price of 47 is what he should be, or 48. But not enough for it to be too big of a deal, I don't think, for Junior. So I wouldn't be picking him up. 4% seems about 3.5% seems about right. Okay, Victor Bra. 45 price stat, 43 average. For me, he just has a little bit of an issue with, obviously, the suspension risk. He has carryover points. He's going to be a great NRL player as per normal. But that big link man in the Roosters doesn't get you stats for NRL fantasy. Just be aware of that. For me, he needs 80 minutes in the middle to be really, really relevant in fantasy. And he won't get that. Like, the odd game he will. Obviously, they had a lot of guys out last year. He'll get somewhere between that 65 to 70 on average, I'd say. Just because he's such an important player in that side, and if he can stay on the park for long periods of time, I think he probably has a little bit of upside around that 47 score, I'd say. The other random games where he had 9 minutes here in round 9. I think that's when he got kicked off the field, right? Would have been. How many? No, it'll say down there somewhere. No, it was that game there, Broncos. That's right. Was it 4 sin bins? No, 4 penalties and 2 sin bins. That's right. That was crazy. That was a fun game to watch. Not. But yeah, has a little bit upside in certain points, but then can have games of 50. This was 2020, but 55 minutes for 24, 53 minutes for 30, 57 minutes for 25. Obviously, that one there, 46 for 32, 66 for 34. So just very volatile as well. So I wouldn't be stressed too much about picking up someone like Victor. All right, Stefano. Biggest thing to talk about is he came off the bench and had lower minutes at the start, which is also all obviously priced into his average and his price point right now. You get him near the end of the season and he gets some bigger minutes in the starting side. Looking at scores of 62, 44, 56, 65, 53, 43, 68, and 55. So really, really consistent there. And if you can get that gets him into the 50s and a chance of being a keeper for a guy who is a chance of playing Origin, but you're not completely certain. He plays round 13. If he does really well, you can always keep him for the entire year. Owned by 19% of teams. If you don't have him, you might be missing out if he does end up being the player that we think he is. But he obviously showed glimpses of that last year. And this is what we're looking for in certain guys in this mid-range, is them having some upside, whether it be minutes or whether it be them improving as a player. He's obviously pretty much a second-year player. He played 3 games in 2020 for a net total of 24 minutes. So, yeah, big upside in terms of minutes at this stage, which will get his average, up anyway naturally. And then if he has the opportunity to score more tries, etc., then he's going to be a good player. So he's currently in my side. I'm definitely would be looking to pick him up if you haven't at this stage. Cool, Jai Arrett. Move on to next section. All right, so for me, he needs a 70 to 80 minute roll. Looks like there's a chance he gets an edge roll. If he gets a big minute roll there, then he can be worth it. He obviously scores pretty solid off the bench, guys, but he's not someone that I'd be looking at if he gets a bench spot. We look at some games here in the second row, but he only got 65, 51 minutes, 40 minutes. He then plays a couple at the end. You got 42, 48, and then gets some good scores when he gets some big minutes, 67 minutes, 69, and we pick up a 50 and a 53. So if you think if he ends up getting that spot and there's chat that he's going to play big minutes, then he can definitely be an option at a price of 44. You should be able to get a 52 to 54 from him in that position if he does get on edge, and he might get dual if he's named there to start round 1. Yeah, something to think about with Arrow, but not too much at this stage. We'll just follow him along over the trials. Okay, Peachy, we need an idea of what minutes he's going to play. If he plays similar to what he did at the Titans, then there's no upside, right? I just feel like it's way too hard to predict that across the season. He does have the mid and half dual, so no center this time, which is frustrating because for him, he's not going to. It can be a keeper in the centers, but he can't be in the mids or the halves. Even with the type of role he plays, if he got an extra 10 minutes, I could see him getting up to like a 46 to 48 price. He's just really volatile as well. Some games he does get that 50 to 60 minutes, get 80 minutes one game last year, but he can still get a 33 in that 56, right? Sometimes he gets way more points in the minutes he plays, but just over the season, you can see some games need to change. Lock, will they do that at the Tigers too? There's every chance that happens across the season. I've said I don't have guys like Mo Zimbai or something that could come in and play that middle role, but yeah, I just feel like there's too many question marks with Peach to pick him up at this stage. But if you like him, then by all means, go for it. Okay, Dale Finucane is someone that a few people have spoken about as well, so he's the last one we'll analyze today. You can see here in games in big minutes through the middle, he still only can get higher to mid 30s, around 45. Then he's got a couple of games here with tries, which he got 61 and 76, which is not going to be normal for him. But around that 60-minute lock roll, he's getting 38 to 38, 33, 47. Right, so he's priced at 38. You can see him somewhere around that 40 mark if he gets big minutes, but I just don't see it happening this year for the Sharks. I think they've got too many, good middle forwards. You've got guys like Jack Williams who are, even fighting for a spot, who could play that, that middle forward role. I just don't think I see the value. And at 5.4% ownership, I think it's way too high for Finucane. I expect him to be about a 1 to 2%. If that stays at 5.5%, he does start in the middle. Whether it be lock or in the front row, I expect that to be down to about 1 to 2% pretty quickly throughout the season. But there you go, guys. That's the middle forwards and also the hooking mid-range video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, got a lot out of it. Please hit like, subscribe. I really appreciate it. for anyone who stuck all the way to the end. And we'll catch you in the next one, guys. Good luck with making your teams. See you later.